Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service, award-winning business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that appreciates what matters most to businesses: practical advice and cost-effective results. We understand your business because our team has the unique perspective of having real-world business experience themselves. Learn more at gertzberglaw.com. While you're there, be sure to check out Cover My Six, a proprietary legal audit that will identify, target, and minimize your business's exposure to lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how you can prevent a lawsuit before it starts. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
So from day one, I had the vision of, I'm going to be a hammer in search of a nail. I am going to create demand where people don't even know their demand even exists.
Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. Welcome to another exciting episode of Best Podcast Ever. I think I emphasized the wrong part of that sentence. Welcome to another exciting episode of Best Podcast Ever. There's an irony about this thing that I'm recording for you right now as an intro to this interview with my man Jeff Moore, which I think you're going to love. The irony is that it is my second attempt at recording an intro for the interview of my man Jeff Moore. My first attempt was an 18-minute string of psychobabble that I recorded yesterday using our regular equipment, and I talked a whole lot about coronavirus on it and the implications of it for our economy and technology and the historical perspective on it, and how there is this uncertainty and fear surrounding it, which is great for those few industries and companies who thrive on fear and uncertainty, like law firms in some cases, and manufacturers of isopropyl alcohol and other hand sanitizing ingredients, but in general are not very good for the rest of the economy and most of our businesses, all of whom thrive on comfort and security, right? So I talked about how after 9/11, the economy took this giant shit after people stopped traveling and stopped spending money, and fear in the stock market led to sell-offs and more fear and bank runs and yada, 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 right? So there's this ripple effect that happens when there is fear and uncertainty, and one thing leads to another thing, and you have a recession, or you have just lots and lots of problems for lots of people. And that seems to be happening now. And people are going to be spending less money, and they're going to be going out less, and they're going to be congregating less, and fear is going to keep circling around and creating more fear. And especially, certainly one difference between now and after 9/11 is that there is even more proliferation of news, fake news, rumors, panic. And, you know, the internet was alive and well back then. And I seem to remember that social media was around. Was it around? I don't remember if it was around, actually. Geez, that was 20 years ago. I feel like MySpace was a thing in the early aughts. But look, now everyone's got an opinion, and everyone is perfectly happy sharing it, and most people don't seem to care about facts. That's probably a way too broad generalization. Anyway, there I was talking about a lot of what you just heard in this first attempt that went on much longer than this one. Thank goodness you're not listening to that one. And sure enough, I think I recorded it, but when I uploaded it, or when my assistant uploaded it, it did not come through. So you are getting the second attempt at an intro for this interview of my man, Jeff Moore. I guess another thing that I talked about, which I should talk about because it's important to me, is that you really got to have perspective. You know, yes, it is true that most things are canceled. And I shouldn't say most things that have large groups of people congregating together in public are canceled or canceling. Yesterday, the state of Ohio canceled all school for like 3 weeks. So kids very happy, parents not so much. Teachers, I don't know. I feel like the teachers are probably, I don't know, some of them are probably happy. Anyway, whatever. So panic, fear, uncertainty, insecurity everywhere. But I'm reading this book right now by Eric Larson called The Splendid and the Vile. And for those of you who don't know Eric Larson, he's the one who wrote Devil in the White City, which was about the 1894 World Fair in Chicago, during which America's first serial killer was running rampant and just kidnapping women and torturing people and killing them in this horrible torture chamber hotel that he built just for that purpose. That's Eric Larson. That's a great book. You should definitely read it, especially if you're a fan of true crime and historical fiction. Same Eric Larson just came out with a book called The Splendid and the Vile, and I'm about halfway through it. And that book is about the 1940 air invasion of England by the Germans. And it's fascinating to read that historical narrative and compare it to the panic and the fear and uncertainty and all those scary things that are happening right now, because, I mean, that's within the last century. And the things that those Londoners, that the British were going through back then, those were part of a truly existential crisis. So we today are experiencing some inconveniences that are creating all this panic, but you know, and you turn on you turn on the old YouTube and you see people getting into fist fights over toilet paper and paper towels in Walmart, and I don't know, it's crazy. But what was happening back then in 1940 England was people were going to bed not sure if when they woke up they were going to be pulled out of their homes by invading German soldiers and thrown into prison camps or shot on the spot. The hatred between the British and the Germans in World War II was extreme, and people would be coming out of their homes and looking outside and seeing what used to be a city block turned into a landscape that looked like the crater of the moon, the craters on the moon. I mean, just bombed out everything, right? And you're sending your kids to school and they're doing air raid drills, and you know, not terribly long ago, and there are folks right now who are in their 80s and 90s who lived through that, and it just gives you perspective. It gives me a lot of perspective anyway when I think about panic and these things. Now, granted, I don't know that we've had a pandemic this size. I know we had one in 1918 that was pretty close or bigger, But anyway, if you want to feel really good about where we are today as a society, you can feel great and grateful by comparing today to a lot of other situations. I mean, gosh, I think sometimes when I want to feel really good about where I am today, I think to myself that it wasn't too much longer than a century ago that people were doing surgery without anesthetic. You know, I mean, that shit just keeps me up at night, you know, and it doesn't really, but it does give me a lot of perspective. Gosh, what a great book, though. Check it out, The Splendid and the Vile. It's focused a lot, too, on Winston Churchill and how he led his country and his government through that crisis. Great leadership lessons there. Speaking of leadership, how's this for a segue? Let's talk about Jeff Moore. Jeff is the founder and CEO of this really great company called Value-Based Solutions, which I know a lot about because I'm a client, and that's how I first met him. I was referred to Jeff by a good friend and longtime tax accountant at what was then Skoda Minotti, which is now Markham. But Jim Sacker, you were the one who introduced me to Jeff, and I'm glad you did, because that led to a whole lot of other introductions and a whole lot of other experiences. So I get to Jeff. Jeff's business, Value-Based Solutions, is all about going into companies, going through their P&L, their expenses, their expense budget, and finding items in there to break down, to reduce, to eliminate, to renegotiate. And he did that at my firm, and my firm is definitely among the smallest of the demographic that Value-Based Solutions deals with. But they did exactly what I just described. They came in here, they looked at my P&L, they renegotiated my IT contract. They found a whole lot of fat that just sort of accumulated like it does in so many businesses. And they reduced my spend and they made me more profitable. And the really great thing about all of that is that I didn't have to pay him or his company except out of the savings that he created for me. So that part of Jeff's business is entirely success fee based. So, boy, think about that, right? You're running a company, and how amazing would it be if all of your service providers acted that way, worked that way, you know, including your law firms. I mean, I'll throw myself under the bus here too. We don't do a lot of contingency fee cases anymore, but it is a great way to do business. You know, it says a lot about your confidence level and your processes. And Jeff does that and has for 15 years now. Here's another fun fact about Jeff and Value-Based Solutions. 15 years, no unplanned terminations or turnover of employees over there. Think about that. Oh man, I've had my law firm for 7.5 years. I wish I could say, and I wish I could say anything close to that. But that says a lot about Jeff as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and as a business owner. And so we talk a lot about that here. We talk about Jeff's entrepreneurial journey from having an interesting childhood relative to his parents to becoming a true dyed-in-the-wool entrepreneur in high school and turning a fascination with sports and with baseball cards into a full-fledged business while he was still in high school. He turns that into a career at Arthur Andersen and eventually into what became Value-Based Solutions 15 years ago. He's just an interesting dude. You guys are going to really love this conversation. So let me shut up now and let you listen to it and enjoy it. And I will see you on the other side. Thanks, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Jeff Moore. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. So the folks at home already know all about you because they just listened to this intro. And so I want to jump right in. But one thing I want to do that I keep forgetting to do, but I remember it now, is a win. We're going to start with wins. One personal and one professional win. This probably sounds familiar to you.
Sure.
Go.
Well, on the personal side, everything I do these days is for my kids. So I have 4 children, blended family. So my oldest has worked her entire life to get into vet school. So she's at Ohio State Vet School.
Awesome.
She's 23. My 21-year-old is going to RIT. Just got recognized as one of the top 1% of all students. So I'm looking forward to an upcoming celebration.
Wow.
My third daughter is at the University of Michigan. So I'm a house divided,
Oh my
and
goodness.
wants to be and then Mason, who's still home. I'm just exceptionally proud of him, and has picked up golf 3 years ago and is like a 5 handicap. So all of my personal accomplishments, I live vicariously through my children. So personal wins all center around the family.
Okay. What's a professional win?
Professional win. I get the most reward out of referrals from clients. I had one recently where just out of the blue, so we work with about 500 different companies a year, and we have virtually no sales force. So we get our work from people who've been clients and moved to a different company, or just referrals from people that say, hey, these guys are doing something different in the marketplace. You should try them out. And just recently, I had a call out of the blue from a guy that it would be the 3rd client that we've worked with him. And he just said, hey, I'm someplace new. I want to get a quick win. I'd like to work with you again. And so he arranged a call with their CEO and president and chief operating officer. And I was ready to do my thing. I can do our pitch in 8 minutes or 12 minutes or 17 minutes. And I was ready to do that. And he goes, well, wait, Jeff, before I do this, I want to tell some stories. And he went on to tell 3 or 4 different stories on the couple places we'd worked with previously. And he just told these just amazing, where he said, remember when this happened and you saved us this, and we didn't think you'd get anything and you did. And I was just, wow. It really made, that's why I get up every morning. So anytime I get a referral from a client, or anytime a client takes the time to say, you're doing something different, those are wins for me on the business side. They really
Awesome.
are.
Okay. So mine are, so my personal win is actually retroactive, but we are announcing it now. And that is, Jeff, I am 44 years old and I'm going to have another baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's big news.
Yeah. My girlfriend, Tiffany, is 5 months pregnant and is due July 15th.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That will bring so much joy
Yeah.
to life. And I didn't know I was going to be here for the big reveal.
This is a big reveal.
That is a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's great.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Likewise.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And it's going to be a boy, and we're just ecstatic. And professional win is that we have, actually, I think it's going to be a tie, and I'm going to mention EO because you're here and you're a big reason why I'm in it. And I think I may have mentioned that I was looking into it in prior episodes, but you, TJ Glia, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and other people that I really admire just kept on talking about it. And when you hear about something enough, it starts drawing you to it. The universe is telling you something. And so I'm in my 3rd month of it, and it's been amazing. So applying for it, being invited to join has been a major win. And then related to that loosely is this direction that the firm is going into in business consulting. And we're getting more and more client engagements on helping them grow their revenue.
as opposed to just what you typically hire a law firm for, which is to protect you from losing your money, right? And the light bulb that has been sort of flashing on and off for us is that everybody thinks of their law firm as a cost center, which we'll be talking about, right? Costs, but the law firm is a cost, right? And to be able to change the way people think of their law firm from a cost center to a profit grower, a revenue generator. And we're doing that now. And so we're working with multiple clients now on growing their revenue and increasing the number of revenue streams that they have, and then deepening their revenue streams.
Love that.
Yeah.
Really a trusted business advisor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So those are my wins. I usually, if you've listened to prior episodes, will remember that I forgot to do wins. And we end up doing them 20 minutes in. So that's another win for us right there. So value-based solutions. I'm a client, a happy client. I couldn't wait to get you on this podcast because I sing your praises to anyone who will listen. But it's such a unique business. You help clients reduce their expenses, and you don't get paid unless, except to the extent that you do, that you renegotiate their contracts, you find ways for them to save money. And I know there are other things that you do besides that. That is the one thing that we did with you.
Yep.
So first, talk about those other things, because I'm not going to do it justice. And then second, walk us through your journey of how you started your business and what made you think to do what you do and how you got to where you are.
Well, how about if I start with the journey, and then
Yeah.
I'll end with value-based solutions.
I like it.
My journey is, as I think through and reflect on what led up to value-based solutions. I led a pretty normal childhood until I was in my early teens, and so you look back at the things that have the most impact on your life. My parents, out of the blue, told my brother and I they were getting divorced, and when I was 14, and neither parent wanted us. Which was kind of a crazy situation. So yeah. I really grew up fast, and basically raised my brother living in the house with my mom, but had to do a lot of things that most 14-year-olds don't do. So I always was mature for my age, ended up going off to college. My parents still fought over money. So the entrepreneurial itch came into my life for the first time ever when I was entering. I basically told my parents I'm going to fund my own college education through scholarships or finding something to do to earn money.
And where is this? Where are you growing up?
I grew up in the Cleveland area. I'm born and raised. I'm a CLE baby.
East side or west side?
South side, really. But Parma Heights.
Okay.
Which is where. So yeah, I never know what to say. I guess it's technically west side.
Yeah.
It's Cleveland. And I was entering a scholarship competition, and my dad was reviewing it, and it was the first time. My hobbies were I collected baseball cards. I'm a diehard sports fan, and it was the first time my dad ever saw that I would like to run my own business someday, that I had entrepreneurial dreams. So he said, well, I'll tell you what if I gave you $1,000 to start your own business? And he goes, so most kids were into cars and girls. I was into baseball cards and girls. And so my dad gave me $1,000, and I bought and sold sports cards.
How old were you at this time?
I was 15,
Okay.
16, and basically turn that into, and my dad's only rule was, you can't, if this turns into something, college and your education is most important. So it can't ever get in the way of grades. So at the time there was only one baseball card show a year. There was one baseball card shop. It was more of a coined thing. There was no internet. And, so I would set up, at a flea market 3 times a week. And I set up next to this guy named Tim who sold slightly expired Edmunds cookies that fell off a truck, but back then you could still go to a flea market and find great collections of baseball cards and sports memorabilia. And I've literally owned almost every baseball card that's ever existed. I've bought entire collections from the 50s all the way through the 80s. It's just I've been incredibly fortunate, and
what was the I'm a chronic interrupter, so
that's fine.
Forgive me. What was the most expensive trade you ever made, and who was it?
Well, at one point in time, I bought a complete run and set of baseball cards.
A complete what?
Some 1952 top set. I've never owned the Hannes Wagner card, but I've owned the second and third scarcest cards of all time. Probably the best piece of memorabilia I've ever had was I owned one of only 4 Babe Ruth jerseys that were ever in existence, and turned around and sold. If I look back, if I would have kept that, it would have been worth a lot more. But I made thousands of dollars. I'd never bought a jersey before, and sold it within a week or two for $5,000 profit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up financing it between educational scholarships and buying and selling baseball cards. And even when I went off to college, I hired people to, buy sets and break them down and sell 1,000 card lots of people's rookie cards. And so I abided by my dad's wishes, but so anyway, I had the entrepreneurial itch and the entrepreneurial bug. I've only had one interview in my life. I went to the College of Worcester. I was an economics major. I was going to go to Wharton to get my MBA, and the mail was at the student center. At one time, I was playing pool and foosball with my friends. I was out at the student center, and the consulting division of Arthur Andersen was, for the first time ever, which became Andersen Consulting and then ultimately Accenture. They interviewed on campus, and I was literally out. My buddy says, "Hey, I'm going to check my mail," and I'm like, "I never get mail," but I'm like, "Okay, I'll go back in." And I had very good grades, and my resume was on file, even though I was going to go get my MBA. And they basically said, "Hey, we have an interview slot at 8 a.m. tomorrow if you'd like to interview with us. We saw your resume. I know you didn't apply, but we'll open a slot for you." And so if I don't go back and check my mail, I miss that. And so I thought, a practice interview, I'll try it. And the practice interview turned into an offer, and I decided, it'd be better to have job experiences. So I basically got a deferment and started living case studies of doing consulting type work. And I loved it. Ended up breaking up with a woman who went to this. I wasn't going to Wharton anymore because she was going to Penn vet school. And I just fell in love with consulting and solving the business problems that nobody else could solve. So I had a very successful career at Andersen, but I still had that entrepreneurial itch. And the more and more responsibility I took on, I felt the further and further I ended up getting away from solving real client problems. I had big P&L responsibility. I was a risk manager, a salesperson with industry trends, but I didn't enjoy the work as much. And my daughters at the time were 8 and 6, and I was traveling what felt like 10 days a week. So I went through an early midlife crisis at age 40 and basically decided I wanted to start my own business. And Value-Based Solutions is what I founded 15 years ago. And as you mentioned before, I struggled with not everybody loves consultants. And I as I went through this soul searching, I looked at buying businesses. I looked at moving closer to where I might ultimately retire. But I kept coming back to, I love Cleveland. I'm born and raised here. I'm good at consulting, and I love the concept of running my own business. So instead of leaving this geography, I leaned into it and created a business offering that I believe is relevant. So our core offering is 100% contingent cost takeout targeting indirect spend. So what do you, office supplies, packaging, temporary labor, telecommunications, what do you pay for a payroll check? What do you pay for merchant or credit card processing? And our fee structure is 100% contingent. And we take a percentage of first year savings, and it's done in a fashion where it's time phased. So a company is always cash flow positive. And it's the best thing I ever did. It was so free and liberating. It was scary, taking that big leap. But it's the best decision I ever made in my entire life.
So who are your ideal clients?
Really anybody. We can help anybody with spend. I mean, we work with about 500. So our geographies are the U.S. and Canada. We work with a little bit over 500 different companies a year. We have clients in 48 of the 50 states, every Canadian province, because the indirect spend markets are different in the U.S., even in Canada. We work with, as an extended part of the operating team, of over 100 different private equity and family holding companies. So we work with, our real client targets are the companies that own companies. So most of our companies that we work with are, maybe 30, 40 million or greater in revenue. But that's about 70% of them are between 30 and 40 million and $1 billion in revenue. About 15% are larger and 15% are smaller than that 30 or 40 million threshold. But we can help a $10 million company. It's just there's not as many vendors we work with, et cetera. But it really matches my, I struggled on the consulting side because not everybody was good. And not everybody loved their consultant. They would say, "Hey, you borrowed my watch and told me what time it was, and you charged me a bunch." And
Right.
I always struggled with that aspect of it. So what I do doesn't hurt. We do 95% or more of the work, and my clients may not all love me initially, but they really like me a lot because we improve their EBITDA. The projects pay for themselves. We prove out what was actually saved. And then what it does is I learn about their businesses. So 500 different companies a year, if we source indirect spend, we touch every department, every location, and it creates the opportunity for me, similar to what you were talking about on your business, to be that trusted business advisor that if I introduced him and say, "Hey, this guy Alex on the legal side, he's doing something different. You got to talk to this guy." So I love to connect things. I love to make cross introductions of value. And what I do, I never thought I would do the same thing over and over and over again, but we do, and put ourselves out of business almost every single client we work with. But that's why we get so many referrals are so important to us, et cetera. But I love it. It's great.
I'm always fascinated by the origin story, which you talked about a little bit, but I want to drill down a little bit more. The idea is brilliant. The idea of everyone wants to save costs. This is something that every company needs, right?
Yep.
Without question.
No question.
Find me a company that says, I don't want to reduce my costs, right? So talk about when and how the idea came into your head and then turned into a business.
So I ran a major consulting firm. By the end of my time at Anderson, I was running a very, very big part of the business. And we used to run trend discussions. My expertise was supply chain and procurement with business processes and technology. And so we would run trend discussions. And one of the things that we found was the average company on the procurement side spends 10 to 12 times more effort and attention on raw materials or direct materials as opposed to indirect, which typically is spread like peanut butter across functional departments. Nobody really owns indirect spend. Your HR might own temporary labor, and what do you pay ADP for a payroll check? Your plant manager might own waste management and uniforms and mats and vending machines and MRO supplies. So nobody really owns it. So 10 to 12 times more on the direct side as opposed to indirect, but the ratio of spend was not 10 or 12 to 1. So the hypothesis of value was companies don't spend enough time and effort on indirect spend as opposed to direct spend. And the people who work on that are also very, very busy running the day-to-day business. So it's not that they have bad intentions, but they typically don't have procurement expertise. And so what ends up happening is you look at year over year, we spent about the same thing, when in reality, the market may have moved and you should have been paying a lot less. So that was so I wanted to create something that was contingent, that we only get paid if we deliver. And so that was the hypothesis of value. And I funded the business myself so it was very dangerous because I'm paying out payroll cycles 3 to 18 months before maybe getting paid. So the first year I could only do it about 30% of the time. The
Yeah.
second year about 60, 70% of the time. And by the time I was in the third year, I walked into the fiscal year with enough receivables that all I had to do was collect it more than my payroll, and then I could do as much
Right.
as I wanted.
So I was dying to ask you this question, right? It is important to have relationships, right, with your vendors.
Yep.
But those relationships are a double-edged sword because they prevent you from shopping around. And so one of the things that you guys did for us was I said to your guy, I really like my IT company.
Yep.
And every time I switch, I was 5 years into this law firm, and I'd had like 7 IT guys, and each transition from one to the other was traumatizing to me. And you guys said to me, I don't think we need to change your IT guy. I think, though, that we can take a better look at the spend there. And you, sure enough, without pissing him off, helped me renegotiate my contract with him and saved me a boatload of money. And he's still my IT guy 2 years later. We've got a great relationship. But I imagine you see that a lot, where that relationship that you don't want to change has mushroomed.
Right. So the super majority of the time, I would say 85% or so, we end up getting better pricing from the incumbent vendors. The only time we ever switch, because even though indirect spend is not sexy or glamorous spend, you have now I would argue IT much more strategic in your business, but what the mats that you wipe your feet on when you walk in a building, who cares who you get your coffee and water from? But you still have existing vendors for a reason. It might be location, proximity, you know somebody, maybe there's reciprocal client relationships. So we take those relationships very, very seriously. And the only way that we would ever switch is if we happen to catch you at a time when you're unhappy with a vendor. Maybe you're consolidating 3 vendors in a given spend category down to 1 or 2 to take better advantage of your buying power, or you switch for savings if your incumbent vendor doesn't want to. So it's really counterintuitive. But so nothing we do is fire and brimstone negotiation. It's very professional. We show competence. We organize our team by spend category, and we just have a job to do. In today's day and age, people expect people to be paying attention to that. You just tend to outsource that. So you're still in charge of what you would like to have happen. Like, hey, I really like this vendor. I want to stay with them. Maybe other times you're open to switching. But it's just it's counterintuitive, but your relationships actually deepen with your vendors because oftentimes nobody pays attention to who you're getting your coffee and water from. I'll just pick a topic. But when we pay attention on and we shine a light on it, suddenly you get upgrades in your equipment because it's just been a house account and nobody's paying attention to it, or hey, did you know we can do this, and this for you as well. Yeah. And the vendors realize we have a lot of influence. They may call on you for coffee and water forever and they can't even get in the door. Right. But if they've been a good vendor at many, many companies that we've worked with in the past, they know it's never going to be the most profitable business in the world, but we can walk them right into the decision makers and get them a chance to bid on the business. Yeah. So you actually end up in a much, much better place but that is oftentimes a concern.
They sharpen their pencils.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Where have you seen consistently again and again the low-hanging fruit, the easiest places to save a boatload of money?
I've almost given up trying to guess where it's at. So there are certain things where it's almost not fair because so let's take payroll processing with ADP. We negotiate with them 300 times a year. And so because we organize our team by spend category, the exact same person does the exact same negotiations each and every time. So we know what good, better, and best pricing is. We know what concessions they'll be willing to make on. So sometimes we have all the data points, and you would think that the more you spend, the better, it should be linear, right? It's like a random number generator and the numbers are all over the place. So and nobody really wants to switch that because it's expensive to switch that category. But the vendor knows we know, and they know we're very fair and forthright in terms of our negotiations with them. And so sometimes it's just we see all the data points, and
Right.
it's all
Yeah.
And then there's other times where there are certain categories where like temporary labor or waste management or certain subsets of transportation where the percentage savings is typically a lot higher than others, but it varies. I've seen just if you work with 500 companies a year, nobody's the same in terms of where the opportunity, because they may have had somebody that paid huge attention to their transportation, but their pallets they're paying 3 times too much, or their industrial gases, because if industrial gas prices are down, but they're not tied to an index, yes, it's hard to say,
Okay.
but it's fascinating each and every time. I know, the we've had within the last. So if you use ice, it sounds crazy, but we've had within the last year 6 clients where we saved at least $50,000 a year on ice. It's ice, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But what happens is they deliver it. It's never melt. It's crazy,
Yeah.
But ice is ice,
Yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah. So 15 years?
15 years. Yes.
15 years, the
Yeah.
company. Well, before actually, let me back up. There are other things that you do at your company
We do.
besides cost savings. What are the others?
We do. So there's 2 other things that we do. I very rarely speak of this, but I funded the business myself. So we have a very small but powerful hourly consulting business. And that is still run today by a guy named Craig Petz. So we do very strategic, large program project management. So if a company's doing a merger integration, they're trying to assess the 2 systems and how they fit together. What's the business case to go from 2 systems to 1? But things, it's all centers around large, complex program or project management. And I'm just very, very blessed Craig's one of the best consultants I've ever worked with in my life, and he runs a team of people that do that. We have the contingent offering that I mentioned, and then we do have a second service offering, which is, I've never seen another consulting firm ever do this. It is best and final negotiations for larger one-time purchases. So think about you have a roof that needs repaired, a parking lot that needs repaved. You have an annual software maintenance agreement. Let's say you had done your annual negotiations with your IT professional firm and wanted to have somebody take an outside look at it. So how that works is the company sets the specification, they pick the vendor of choice, they negotiate it to best and final. And right when they're ready to award the business and the PO to the exact vendor that they want to do business with, but before the PO is awarded, they take the best and final quote, they give it to Value-Based Solutions. We see if we have 5 minutes worth of questions. The baseline has been established. You're about to buy this for this amount of money. And then we engage the vendor of choice, explain that we're outside the 4 walls of your business, acting on behalf of the leadership team, perhaps if there's a private equity parent involved as well. And we share that we're auditing the larger one-time purchases. And in many cases, we actually are. Maybe they have 10 pounds worth of stuff they're trying to put into a 6-pound bag, and there's too many capital requests and not enough dollars to go around. So we're very empathetic. We engage the vendor of choice and see whether there's anything else that they can do from a savings to put on the table. And they know at that stage, they've been checking visitors logs. They know whether you're getting competitive quotes. They've asked you, what's your budget? And it's almost not fair, because let's say it's an engineered item where it's a custom piece of equipment, you're asking an engineering group to compose a piece of equipment that solves a business problem and matches a budget. And then at the very end, after they do it, they put their purchasing hat on and say, give me your best price, and maybe they aren't geared towards doing their negotiations. So if there's anything else to give, the vendors do. With that service offering, 88% of the time, we get some level of incremental savings. Our average savings is slightly more than 7%, and our average turnaround time is less than 1.5 business days.
Wow.
Many times it's the same day. So I've never seen anybody else ever do that, and it is fascinating. And if people saw what we see, and how much extra dollars are left on the table, everybody would do that.
I'm always fascinated by how entrepreneurs find something that they're good at or something that they're kind of already doing and then creating another but different offering out of it. Right. So you're already doing best and final negotiations, but maybe somebody doesn't want the full boat, right, of the other service. This is laser focused, quick.
Yeah, and it was actually a subset of my clients created that offering. They basically came to me and they said, Jeff, what else can you do for me? And we literally, once I do my thing on the consumable recurring indirect spend, the one I talked about earlier, unless you grow through acquisition or a merger, we teach you how to fish. We transition knowledge to a company and they never need us again. So I literally put myself out of business, each company I work with. So that's why I hope sometimes they move, or that's why I target private equity firms, because their investments change. But my client said, what else can you do for me? And I'm like, nothing. And so I took a subset of 5 or 6 companies. I said, well, let's brainstorm what it could be. And they actually created this service offering. And I feel very, very blessed and very fortunate.
Yeah. And is that also contingent?
It is. So the baseline's established based on what they were just about to write the check for. And then the more we save, the more the client gets to keep. So it's kind of a sliding scale. But the nice thing about that is that each year, like maybe one year a company they're refreshing their forklifts, another one they're buying new software. So we get into the deal flow of any purchase over $10,000. We just become institutionalized as part of the approval process to at least ask the question, does this one make sense to look at? And so that way we were able to engage with companies for the long haul.
I want to talk about process.
Yeah.
And processes, because having been your client, it was interesting to me how process driven it seemed like there were behind what I saw, just nothing but checklists.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I know one thing that certainly that I struggle with, but that I know a lot of founders struggle with as they're trying to scale, is creating good processes that stick.
Yep.
Talk about how you have either succeeded or struggled with creating and then maintaining good processes in your business.
So one of the things I struggled with as I was starting my own business was, I ran a very wide range of service offerings, and I wanted to create something that is repeatable, that you can do over and over and over again. So from day one, I had the vision of, I'm going to be a hammer in search of a nail. I am going to create demand where people don't even know their demand even exists. You fast forward 15 years later, it takes me 1 minute to create a statement of work because I do the same thing over and over and over again. I've been really lucky to attract and retain some amazing individuals, and I get nervous we have not had a single unplanned turnover in the 15 years. So I've been able to,
that's amazing. That's highly unusual.
I get nervous when I say it, but
I'm knocking on wood for you.
But we have just a great team and about 3 or 4 years into doing the business, we were struggling because I had everybody trying to do everything, and we weren't getting through the projects as fast as we could. And by accident, and I wish I could tell you I had the vision to do this, but I said, let's just try, you're just doing temp labor and you're doing office supplies only now and you're doing packaging. And the combination of turning the business on its side and not having turnover really gave us a bandwidth of 5-fold, 10-fold what we could do previously when I was trying to have everybody do everything. Because now I have people wake up every day and say, I'm doing waste management today and I'm doing waste management tomorrow.
And they're getting better at that.
And they just, like our waste management guy, he works with, he probably sources $300 million of waste management. He probably works on thousands and thousands of vendors each year. but even if I had everybody trying to do that, you wouldn't have the same competence, et cetera. So I did it by accident. I wish I, so, and once you realize I'm going to turn the business on its side, then it's all about process. So, early on I was knee deep. And so our whole goal is I can literally tell our clients down to the minute how much time and effort I need them when. We do 95% or more of the work. It's like an outsourced function. And we engage them strategically at the right time to set the direction. Then we do all the work. And the next time they hear from us, we have savings ideas that we share with you. You have to have your processes down to a science in order to do that. So we are spreadsheet and we start with base check register data, and then do a few quick and efficient interviews, 1 to 4 minutes a vendor on the front end. And then the next time you hear, we have savings ideas that we share for your consideration. So so we really do have it down to a science.
Yeah. Why do you think, and let's just assume that we're knocking on wood this entire line of questioning here,
Great.
But why
Thanks.
do you think you've had no unplanned turnover in 15 years? What's the biggest thing responsible for that?
I tease my team that I spoil them. I mean, so the background of our resources they were either an executive who came from consulting with a similar background to mine, or they were executives from industry that were responsible for indirect spend. And so we have 22 resources and we don't have an office. Everybody works out of their house, so they don't have to commute every day. So I give them a half hour on the front end, a half hour on the back end. I measure down to the penny how much is delivered by each and every resource on my team. And I don't micromanage them, so I give them tremendous freedom to not miss a kid's family event. They can take vacation however much they want. But at the end of the day, they know we're scorekeeping.
It's results driven.
It's results driven. We count down to the penny how much. I mean, and then I reward if somebody generates $250,000 in savings and another team member generates $1,250,000 in savings. I take a huge percentage of those savings and I pour it back into them as an individual. So,
do you guys, how often do you meet as a company?
Regularly. So we had a hour-long team call this morning. This Friday, we're meeting everybody in person for lunch. So without having an office, we do tend to have weekly or regular conference calls. I talk to most team members each day around something. To this day, I still review each and every savings that's generated across any client. So that's how I stay engaged and in touch with them. And we do get together so we typically pick a central meeting point and do get together on a regular basis.
I think that your company is largely self-managed. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Can you think of a couple of ideas, concepts, processes, steps over the last 15 years that gave you the most bang for your buck on the road to having a self-managed company?
When I found my place in the company I was mentored. We talked about EO, and one of the great added benefits is you can be mentored by somebody from WPO or YPO. And I took advantage of that. And I had a mentor that I was really struggling. Since I've been in my early 20s, I said, I'm going to retire when I'm 50. And I'm 55 right now. So when I started to get 47, I started the business when I was 40. So when I start getting 47, 48, I stopped talking about I'm going to retire when I'm 50. But these are people who've been with me and they haven't moved or turned over, right? So they're like, hey, how much longer are you going to do this, right? And so through the mentoring, I basically had a guy kind of define what it was, a matrix where he basically said, chart how you spend your time, and personal and business, and strategic and non-strategic, and just track it for a month. And I found out that I less than 20% of the time I was doing strategic things. And more than half the time I was doing things I didn't like. So he walks me through it. He goes, this quadrant, just the non-strategic things you don't like, just stop doing it.
Are you using strategic and non-strategic in the same way that I use in the business versus on the business?
No, it's just however you define. So if you work out and you think that's strategic, or you spend time, go on a date with your wife, that's strategic.
Meaning
personal. Intentional, yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
It was subjective. How I define strategic or non-strategic, and for business and personal. So and you look at it and say, and he just said, stop doing that stuff. And then this stuff assigned to somebody else. So it helped me find a way to where I only do things that are strategic that I like.
Yeah.
That's it. And because he kept saying, what are you trying to retire to? And it helped me realize that the business I have right now I was stuck in a rut, and I have the greatest opportunity in the world to define this business as something that's perfect for me. So I went to a team meeting and I said, good news, I've decided I'm not retiring. Mm-hmm. I said, now here's the 50 things that I used to do that I'm not doing anymore.
Yeah.
And it's going to create amazing opportunities for you to run this business. And I empowered my team to do it. And their satisfaction went up dramatically. And I don't do those things anymore. And so I didn't realize, but I was actually an obstacle to our growth. I was actually, because I didn't want to work that hard. I mean, I work a lot to this day. Because I love what I do.
But you're doing, yeah.
I was doing. There was just as you go from 100 clients a year to 200 clients a year to 300 to 500 clients a year, you can't single thread it through one person. So I still own the processes and the quality control of the processes, but my team runs it. And that was the best coaching and mentoring ever.
My version of that is that I did this exercise a few years ago with my coach in Chicago called the activity inventory. And it was listing everything that you do for work, right, for your business, and then creating 3 columns, each one on rating on a scale of 1 to 4, how much joy that thing gives you, whether you're better at it than anyone else you know. And third was how much bottom line income that task creates for you, right?
Yep.
And if you can score 3s and 4s on everything that you do, and either eliminate or delegate everything that's got 1s and 2s in it, then everything you do is going to have maximum output, giving you maximum joy, right? You're looking forward to it. It's making you money. And you're better at it than anyone else you know, meaning it can't be done by somebody who can do it better than you.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm really glad that you answer the question that way, because people forget that creating a self-managed company is, whether you realize it or not, that is the entrepreneur's dream. But what that means isn't that you're not working. It means that you're being, using your word, strategic. It means that you're creating a highest and best use out of the time that you're going to spend, which not only is going to create a lot more meaningful output, but it's going to free you up to do a lot more that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love connecting things. That's and what it did was it freed up time. So it's like, hey, I'm not doing this stuff anymore.
Right.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
So the only thing I measure my own activity is the number of connections I make per week. 50. Try it. It's hard.
Connections meaning between people, introductions.
It could be, hey, I'd like to introduce you to Alex, and he's doing something different. Maybe it's somebody that's looking for in between jobs, and so can I open up my network? Do you have a list of target clients you'd like to get to? Do you want to get connected in the professional service space? So And what it does is if you say that's how I'm going to measure my effectiveness and that's my best use, it's what I love to do, and it really helps my business, and I expect nothing in return, but it's amazing how that stuff gives back.
Right.
And so suddenly the person you help, they're like, why does this person help me so much on the job search? And then 3 years later, they're like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'd like to bring you in. I mean, there's all kinds of amazing, powerful things that happen. And what it does is it forces me to look for those good business ideas. So whether it's R&D, things that I don't do, it could be pricing strategy, it could be outsourced risk management, it could be tax ideas that you could introduce somebody when you see in a company's business that they're the triggering events. So I'm constantly have a quest for knowledge to tell me what you do and how can I open and help out, you know, and so I love that.
You, Jeff, are the Olympic heavyweight champion of introducing people.
But I enjoy it.
And it's funny because the way I was introduced to you was by our accountant, our tax accountant. And he said, Jeff makes 9 introductions a day.
Right.
And I was like, that's bullshit. There's no way. And sure enough, it's, and they're meaningful. They're well thought out to the point where it kind of, I will tell you, it's become a little contagious. And now what I do is I look for people that I can introduce to you because I know you're going to do the same thing for them.
Right. Yeah,
and now I've made myself more valuable to them.
Right.
You know, and it's fascinating. You've created this web of value, and gosh, the way that you do it too. The subject line says cross introduction of value,
right?
And you don't just say Alex meet Joe. Joe has this business. Hey, Joe meet Alex. Alex has this business. You say, Joe, make sure you ask Alex about his Cover My Six service.
Right.
Because
which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
That is truly unique.
You've given every one of your introductions some real thought. And it just, it deepens your relationships. It helps us. I love it. And I can see what you mean by, it seems to be your connecting things seems to be your unique ability.
I need to be loved. You know, I got issues.
Don't we all? Yeah. All right. Let me go a little deeper on personal stuff.
Yep.
An assumption that you had for a long time that you later found to be totally bullshit. This is worldview stuff here, life philosophy stuff.
You know, there's a couple things that come to mind. I grew up thinking your parents, are right all the time, and it was really, really difficult for when I saw both. My dad was an alcoholic, and was at times broken because of that. But truly one of the most loving individuals I've ever met, would do anything for you. My mom has had her issues through the years. And I think, I grew up wanting parents to be right all the time and seeing the human side of them, especially being a parent myself and making parental mistakes, maybe making some choices that I regret. It's humanized, and the relationship I have, and so I went through a point where I was upset that they didn't always do the right things, and then I've through my own experiences and mistakes, it's helped me realize that's just part of being a parent, and you just hope you can learn from those experiences, and so I spend a lot of time. I am flawed, just like my parents were flawed, but it's caused me to constantly try and be a better person, be a better parent, be a better friend. But yeah, I don't know why you grow up thinking one thing and when reality hits that it's not true. So on a personal, family, it's probably that. And through EO is the other one that comes to mind. I had run a huge consulting business, right? And similar to you, everybody said, you got to try EO, you got to try EO. And I'm like, okay, I'll at least go to a test drive. But I don't know, I went in with the wrong attitude of well, I get this all figured out. I don't need people to, other people to help me with my problems. And EO, for those who don't understand, you follow Gestalt principles. So pure, totally confidential. And the concept is people have the 5% business and the 5% personal that you can't figure out. Everybody,
and you don't talk to anyone about.
Right. And you don't talk to anybody because you have your own group of business connections and friends and family, but you talk about the 90% in the middle, so to find your windows of blind spots and help yourself grow as a person, you go through this thing called, one of the advantages is you go through Forum, and you spend a half day a month, and then one time 2 or 3 days a year in an outing or a retreat, and you confidentially share. And these people don't give you advice; they experientially share and allow you to find your way. So I go to this test drive. And I was the test case, and I had my brother working in the business, and I'm sitting around. I just had a bad attitude. There's nothing else, and I'm like, well, what is this person that runs an office supply or a staffing company or a concrete, whatever, or educational software? What do they have in mind? So I get coached, and I present my issue and it turns out everybody hires a friend or a family member. And it was through their experience shares that something that kept me up at least one time a week, I solved. And it wasn't even the real issue that was at hand. And I was like, I'm not as smart as I think I am. And I checked my ego at the door, and I leaned into it, and truly one of the best decisions I ever made. And so very, very humbling, but well worth it. And so that's the other thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I was the test case in my test drive a few weeks ago. Yeah. It was like, it was so meaningful.
Being on the spotlight.
Yeah, but it was so great. Yeah, it was such an incredible experience.
Yeah.
I did not expect to do as much talking that day as I did, and the trainer was amazing. Let me flip that question upside down. So I asked you, what's an assumption you had for a long time that you found to be bullshit? What's a misconception that other people have had about you?
I think so. I have a thirst for living life complete and full. So I think if people were to look at I'm not a big user of Facebook, but if you looked at my wife's Facebook post, you would say, oh God, I mean, I travel, I take trips, I do life experiences. I love music. I love traveling. And the beautiful thing is I can work any place. So I think there's a misconception that I think people would really be surprised at how much I work. Because, I mean, I don't publicize the number of hours I put in, but, my job is a 7-day-a-week thing, and I do it because I love it. Yeah. But I think people would look at how I live life and say, gosh, this guy lives life complete and full. And I think they'd be really surprised if they knew how many hours I put in and how hard I really worked. So that's probably it.
Do you take free days where you completely unplug and don't look at emails, don't do anything for work at all?
Probably not as much as I should, but yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. I have a bad habit of working 7 days out of the week as opposed to, but there are times I can unplug. Like I literally got in 2 a.m. last night I love Dave Matthews, so I just did a Dave Matthews 3 days in Mexico, and I work awesome. Very little I run my business via email, so I can check every once in a while.
Here's what we're doing. We are going to take a very short break, and when we come back, that was just all a preamble to the lightning round. Right? I was just softening you up.
Yeah, no worries.
Right. When we come back, It's the lightning round. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right, we'll be right back, folks. Hey, folks. Alex Gertzberg here. I'm CEO of the Gertzberg Law Firm and Cover My Six, and I wanted to share with you something we figured out long ago. The biggest value lawyers can give their clients is not getting them out of trouble. It's helping them avoid emergencies before they blow up. That's what Cover My Six is all about. To help you see why we're so confident in this audit, we're offering a no-cost, no-obligation business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person and go over your customer contracts, your employee handbooks, and other key legal documents, and identify any legal minefields they see. We'll also give you guidance on how to stop those minefields from destroying your business. We know lawsuits cost businesses far more than money, but we also know that most of them are entirely preventable, and we know how to stop them before they start. Go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify and sign up today. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, Jeff Moore, we are back. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What is the non-religious book or author whose words you apply the most in your life on a day-to-day basis?
I would say there is a book, I think it's Adam Grant. Grant is definitely, but it's called Givers and Takers. And the concept is most people in life are matchers, and they go through life. You do this for me, and I'll do this for you. There are very, very dangerous people in life who are takers, who will just, use, and sometimes they appear to be givers, but they're really manipulating and taking advantage. But the hypothesis of the book is a rare breed of individual is somebody who is a giver, and those people are exponentially more successful in life. And it was actually through EO, we did on our forum retreat, we did a book, a report, and all read the book in advance. And I realized I oftentimes was a matcher, but from that day forward of reading that book, I aspire to give. I'll give 10, 15, 20 minutes to anybody on any topic, and what they do with that. But it's that book really, really resonated with me. It's a very, very powerful book.
You hear a lot from coaches and from speakers and whatever that it all comes back to you.
Yep.
Right. Just be generous with your time. Sometimes you've got to give it away. Don't look for it to come back to you, but it always does. There's another aspect to that, though, that I don't think people talk about that much, and that is that it builds a muscle. The more generous you are and the more grateful you are, those are two emotions that you get. You actually improve yourself, right, at having. You get better at being generous. You get better at being grateful. And this light bulb went off for me about that, which is that when you get really good at giving without expecting, you actually start to look for ways to create value. You actually look for ways to help people. And that by itself makes you a better entrepreneur, much less, a better person. But the idea that that's a skill that you actually can develop and improve is something that people don't talk about.
And that's where the 50 cross introductions of value a week comes from. That if you force yourself to, that's how I measure. If I made 2 today, I need to make 8 tomorrow, or whatever the number is to get to a number.
Yeah.
And but so you can set bars for yourself that will really cause you to have the right behaviors. So anyway, that is a book, and I'm not I don't recommend movies, I don't recommend books, but that had a profound impact on me, and I think about it every day.
I'm reading it. I still can't believe that you do that many introductions. It boggles my mind. 50 a week, that's your goal?
Yeah.
How long has that been
I've been doing it for about 2, maybe 3 years. I mean, I didn't start at 50. I mean, it was, it was try 20 and 30 and 40. I tried 70 at one point. That's too much. That's too much. And it's really, but 50 is a good enough. You're high. What it does is it forces you a couple hours a day to sit down and uniquely think and say, who am I going to open doors for today? Or who's out there that I could help, and it's rewarding,
Yeah. Do you type them all out or do you dictate them?
I type them,
Okay.
But once you do one, you can do, once you do one for a person, you can do others very quickly, right? But you have to uniquely think about the first one.
If you were a professional boxer, what song would be playing as you entered the ring?
This is embarrassing. It would probably be, the first thing that came to mind would be Freebird. And let me explain why.
Like the second half, the intense part.
Yeah, the intense part. Years and years ago, I loved to golf. I love to compete. I think golf. My mind is clear when I golf. I just want to have fun with the people I'm with. Get close to nature, get a little exercise. So I've been golfing for maybe 20, 25 years. And I had played against this guy. I was at Aurora Golf and Country Club. It's now closed, but there for many years. And I had got thumped. I played one of the best rounds of golf I had played in years. I shot mid-80s, kind of a bogey golfer. And this guy shot 75 against me and just was toying with me. He could have shot 2 under, and he was like an 18 handicap. So I was like, oh God. So I end up drawing this guy again the following year, and I'm nervous, but I played Freebird. I just happened to be playing, and I sat in the parking lot. I'm like, I got to get psyched up. So we're playing my home course this year. So I think I'm going to do better. And the first 6 holes, I'm down 6. I didn't finish a hole. I'm 8. And on the 7th hole, I'm joking around saying, I said, how many? I'm down 6 after 6 holes. I'm like, I guess I got to win the first hole, or this is going to be over at the turn. And he said something along the lines of, pretty much, you stink, and I thought you were better than this, and this really isn't much fun for me. And I was like, well, okay. I said, you haven't seen anything more than my D- game, but maybe I'll just try a little harder. I then went on to win the next 10 holes and closed them out. Wow. And he made me really mad. And so don't poke the monkey on the golf course. But I attribute it to the Freebird. I kept thinking about, this isn't how you were in the parking lot, and so it'd probably be Freebird the at the end.
The irony of the lightning round is that there's nothing quick about it. So number one, I'm never golfing against you. Or
I love to play.
Yeah, I will. First, I'll make you feel like Tiger Woods. And,
well, that's hard.
And
you haven't seen me play yet. I will struggle to break 100.
I will frustrate you.
No, that's
second, there is this a cappella version of Freebird that Fish does, or did, and you've got to. If you're a Freebird fan, you will never think of that song the same way again.
I'll look it up.
That's a great song to play as you're entering the ring.
Yeah. But there's so many people who hate Freebird as a song.
Those people are communists. Please,
that would be it.
No, that's a good answer. If you could ask one question of anyone who ever lived, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I'm a huge baseball fan, and Hank Aaron was my hero growing up. And watching what he went through, because he broke Babe Ruth's record and was African American, and just the death threats, and he handled the whole situation with such class and dignity. I think there's a lot that could be learned. I'd love to just sit down and talk with him about how he persevered, how he made it through that, so he's a hero of mine, and so it would be something along those lines. And I remember watching every at bat as a kid, waiting for him to break the record, and So it would probably be Hank Aaron.
Gosh, I'm so. That was a great answer. I'm ridiculously thin-skinned, and you put me just now into the mindset of how one could be, right? How you could just let every insult bounce off of you if you've got a goal, right? And you're laser focused on your goal, and how you're not going to let anyone who hates you bother you. You know, just occurred to me as I was just thinking about that question. That's a good college entrance exam question. Right?
It is great. Yeah, it is.
Ask anybody, right? What is a habit or routine that you do on a day-to-day basis today that's giving you the most mileage?
If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Plain and simple. That's the first thing that comes to mind. There's not a lot of, I'm that would be it. I'm fair. I try and be fair, but if I give you my word that I'm going to be there at a certain time or I'm going to do something, I do it, and that has gone a long way. I don't think, there are too many times people don't do that, and I've really enjoyed, that's just, it was something my dad instilled in me, and, your word is your bond. And that would, this is the first thing I think that would come to mind.
I think that is one half of the definition of integrity, right?
Yeah.
Say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yep.
Right. Describe a time in your life when you had this is another college entrance. I'm just now seeing the spin. I wonder if that's what I was thinking when I came up with it. Describe a time when you had a massive personal or business failure and how you bounced back from it.
Well, that one's easy. So I was an equity partner at Anderson, and I was fast tracked to partner. And when you become a partner, you buy into the partnership. So I think it was like 3,000 units at $3,000 a unit. So you go from a highly compensated individual to you're now a partner. And on paper, it looks like you're making a ton of money. But when you realize you take out a $900,000 loan of after-tax dollars, I was going into my third year as an equity partner when Anderson went under as a company due to Enron.
Yeah.
So I had the same liability as Dave Duncan, the partner that was on Enron, because while I ran a consulting business, it was part of the Anderson audit and tax. So it was one U.S. partnership. So when Anderson went under, so I actually made less money take home because I was trying to pay down the debt.
Right.
But when they went under, I still owed $400,000 or $500,000 on my worthless partner loan. And a year before Anderson went under, they resold the loan. So when Anderson went under, my capital was worthless, and I owed more for a worthless capital loan than I did on my house, twice as much than I owed on my house. And so I was probably technically bankrupt. And but basically, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I basically took all my life savings, stroked one check, and paid off the debt. I actually needed value-based solutions to negotiate that debt down. I wasn't doing that at that point in time. And I just, because I didn't want to write that for the next 20 or 30 years and be mad every month, and basically worked my way out of it. But that's something I'm proud of. I didn't file bankruptcy, but I was probably insolvent due to something that was totally outside of my control.
I mean, the lawyer in me is automatically going to the defenses I would have for you in that lawsuit. You know.
It was too emotional to try and negotiate it down. I just paid it and moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow. What is the metric you use at the end of the day to determine whether you've had a good day?
You know, that's a great question. I've recently been doing a lot more journaling and reflecting, on I'm trying to be more present, as opposed to just speed through the day and let life come at me, at a pace that I can absorb and be there and present. I'm not there by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm focused. That's my huge focus right now of, what am I thankful for? What am I reflective on for the day? And when I take time to do that, my next day is normally better, because it's top of mind. So that's, but was I present? Did I make a difference that day, and why, and how can I do more of that the next day? That's how I keep score.
So a few weeks ago we had Chuck Mullen on. He's the managing partner of Apple Growth Partners, and he answered the question very similarly, and I love it, and it's making me rethink how I measure a successful day. He said, I measure it by the number of minutes of being totally present that I can accumulate.
Yep.
I mean, that's just, I love that. That's fantastic. And the journaling thing, man, that would be my the habit that I practice on a regular basis that's given me the most mileage.
Good.
If people don't journal, start and then read it like a few months later and look at how many memories and thoughts and observations you made that would have been lost forever. There's this concept of emotional memory that I think about a lot. The thoughts that you think when you're upset are totally different than the thoughts that you think when you're happy,
yep.
Right? So when you're in a particular mindset, if you're writing down those thoughts, look back at them like a month or two, the things that you were worried about, the things that you were afraid of, the things that gave you anxiety. You grow from learning about yourself that way, tremendously. And journaling gives me that
release.
Yeah. And that just the evolution that you have when you're, and not only that, but the catharsis that you have when you just empty your emotional backpack into your journal is huge. I love it. Similarly, what is the metric you'll use at the end of your life to determine whether you've had a life well lived?
2 years ago, when I went to Burning Man, they have something called, it's like a clock, and in the middle is the man, which they burn at the end. But another at 12 o'clock on a clock, it's in a circle, is something they call temple, and it was one of the most moving experiences I've ever seen. So they build the temple, and what you do is you go to the temple to, like, I took some of my dad's ashes and spread them. So if you have thoughts you're trying to release, so let's say you have pent up anger and you want to leave something in temple and release that feeling, or let's say you want to commemorate somebody who's lost, who you've lost. Maybe it was a loved one, it was a pet, it could be anything. And it starts with just a structure, and people go visit throughout the course of the week, and they contribute to the shrine. And at the end, they burn it. And with that, it takes your feelings and emotions go with it if they were negative, or it commemorates the people that were loved. No question for me, I want to live my life so that people would go to Burning Man and commemorate me. There's no question. It is, literally you go walk around and you read some of the things, and one minute you're happy, another time you're bawling uncontrollably. It was one of the most emotional things I've ever been through in my entire life. And I want to live my life so that people will go to Burning Man and remember me.
That's amazing. Okay. The final, the most complex, the most difficult lightning round question is, what is an embarrassing thing about yourself that only a few people know? And for extra credit, for bonus points, that no one else knows?
That's a tough one. If you heard me sing now, it would be horrible. But when
dare me.
No, when I was very, very young, before my voice, changed, I was in the Singing Angels. It was the Ohio Boys Choir, which became the Singing Angels, and was actually paid to sing, and was a soloist, and just really enjoyed that. But it came down to I loved baseball, and in order to continue singing, I had to give up baseball, and that was no question. I played baseball, which was my favorite sport. So, but yeah, if you heard me today, you would say there's no way anybody ever paid this guy to sing. But as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I sang like an angel. I don't have it on tape, but trust me, I was, I guess, good enough. And of course, I quit right before and decided to play baseball right before they traveled all over Europe. So I missed that experience early in life. But that's the only and I don't know that I've ever told anybody that. I guess my parents would know that. But.
Well, I mean, even if you had the choice of doing both that plus baseball, your whole singing career might have changed when you hit puberty.
Oh, it was, yeah. Right? I started like, like Froggy on the Little Rascals or something.
Oh, man, that's hilarious. If anybody has heard Jeff sing, please write to us and send in your YouTube videos.
It's tragic.
Jeff, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks really for doing this.
Thank you very much.
This was
fun. Absolutely. And I get extra joy out of interviewing people that I've done business with, right? Because I get to tell their story from my own perspective. And I've said very little about it, but I will repeat here. It was both a financial and just I learned about how good processes work, from you. And you've got a great organization, you've got a great business, and you've got a great service, and I loved being the beneficiary of all of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And folks, if what you want to do, well, there's two things that you want to do. One is you want to check out, is it value-based-solutions.com?
That's correct.
Okay. Value-based solutions. Check it out. If you run a company, you're a fool for not looking into what Jeff does and what he did for me and what he could do for you. So do that. Secondly, if you've listened this far, then you are, what's your wife's name?
Susan.
Susan, thank you for listening this far. You're probably right. Jeff's wife, and you're probably one of Jeff's 4 children. So thank you all for listening this far. You're probably Roland, who works for you and who works with me. Roland, thank you for listening this far. And you're one of a lot of other people who enjoy this show, and so thank you all for listening this far. And so if this is the first time you've listened, I hope you'll come back. I love doing this. This is one of the funnest things that I do, honestly. And I'm going to keep doing it. And so long as you're going to keep listening, I'm going to keep doing it. And I know who's coming up. And I'm not going to tell you because they might cancel and then I'll look like a fool. But I can tell you that there is an amazing slate of guests coming up, like really extremely successful entrepreneurs and really great coaches to those and advisors to those entrepreneurs. And you want to listen. And there's a couple things that I'm going to ask you to do right now that will help both of us, right? One is whatever device you're listening to this show on is probably one, or I should say whatever platform you're listening to this show on. It doesn't really matter what device is, but whether it's Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify, we're on all of them. So There should be a way for you to leave a review or leave a rating. Please do that. And if you don't know how to do that, just go to iTunes and do it there. That would be awesome. And then secondly, subscribe. You could do that through our Facebook page. You could do that by going to thebest.Podcast.Ever.com, and there's a link there. And then, yeah, whatever you're listening to us on, there's probably a subscribe button. So do that, because if you do that, A, it'll put a big smile on my face, and B, you'll be the first to know when those next episodes drop, and you'll hear really great interviews like this. And I was telling you, Jeff, I mean, I do this predominantly for self-serving reasons, because I get to learn from entrepreneurs like you, you know?
You're great at it. You made me feel at ease.
Oh,
you really
good.
Did.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, it was all for my own benefit. So yeah, no, I mean, like I hope and expect that business owners out there get as much value as I do from it, but ultimately it is for all of our collective, you know, what can we learn from our guests? And I learned a lot from you, Jeff. So thank you for sharing your time and your experience and your stories with us. And folks, thank you for listening this far. We will see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we thank you for listening. And remember to check out the Gertzberg Law Firm. Whether you are starting, running, growing, or transitioning a business, or if you need to create or update your wills, trust, or estate plan, our team will give you an incredible level of personalized attention and a passionate commitment to meet your objectives. We are veteran-owned, and our award-winning lawyers have the highest ranking from Super Lawyers and Avo. We have also recently received the coveted Weatherhead 100 Upstarts Award for a second year in a row, and we are among the first Ohio business law firms to offer our clients a non-billable alternative on every single matter we handle for them, and opt out of the billable hour. What we are most proud of, though, are the many things our clients rely on us for. We successfully defend them in court, but we also help them avoid the courtroom with our Cover My Six service. We protect their assets through good estate and succession planning, and we assist our clients in many non-legal business services like recruiting and business development. We want our clients to feel confident in their choices and to help them resolve any issues or potential problems quickly and efficiently so they can get back to what they love, running their businesses. More than just litigators, we are trusted advisors, problem solvers, and growers of businesses. Let us help you and your company. Call us or find us online to learn more. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.